So, Laughing Man, have you played any good video games recently?
Why, yes, Cinemax. I have been playing Rocksmith 2014, and I have also been playing Telltale's Game of Thrones.
Oh, that sounds interesting. However, are there any future video games that you're looking forward to? Beep boop boop.
Why, yes, Max, I am looking forward to Mortal Kombat X. I really like Mortal Kombat games, and I was looking forward to the new one until I learned that they're releasing DLC for a fucking game that isn't even built yet. Beep beep boop.
Yes, well, there goes the beep boop boop pretense, but yeah, tell me more about what's going on with MKX, will ya?
Wow, where do I fucking begin? Well, I've been a Mortal Kombat fan since I was a kid, ever since you could go to the arcades and watch all the teenagers, eat each other's heads and rip out spines and all that good shit. And, so obviously I am a follower of the series. I'm a great lover of the series, except for maybe Mortal Kombat vs. DC, because, hey, who wants to see Superman get his spine ripped out?
Yeah, well, we don't talk about that installment of the franchise.
Well, that's why we don't. It's because, hey, have you ever seen like pit bulls that are like neutered? It's just as pathetic. You see this big muscle bound dog, and you look in the back, and there's no balls. It's like, that's just heartbreaking. Anyways, so I'm a big fan of Mortal Kombat. I absolutely love the 2011 version, Mortal Kombat 9, the reboot, whatever you want to fucking call it. And Mortal Kombat 10 comes along, and I've been watching, the character releases and all the fun shit, and even the Conan O'Brien, let's play video games with these two, football players. And then I go to Steam and I look at it, and how do I put this? Boone and apparently, I guess it's Warner Brothers now, not Midway, are getting greedy as fuck. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm an admirer of the series. I gotta stress all this shit, otherwise people jump on my ass the minute you say something negative. But, okay, so they are doing pre-orders, fine and dandy, even though I don't care for pre-orders that much, because it's kind of like buying the product before the product is reviewed. It's kind of like buying a movie before the movie's even out in theaters, buying the DVD. It's like, yeah, pre-order this DVD even though the movie's not in theaters yet. And it's like, fuck you. I want to see it first. I want to know what it's going to be about. But not only that, but this game is not released yet. And even months before its intended release, it has DLC planned.
Uh-oh.
So let's just say I am not happy. I mean, some people like DLC, and that's fine. To an extent, I'm not innocent of buying DLC myself, but it's really making me nauseous by the fact that DLC has become so fucking commonplace that you can add DLC to a not even finished project. You're creating content and deliberately holding it back from the release to sell it later. That pisses me the fuck off.
Well, I do believe that it's fair to, or rather, I believe it's only fair for us to preface by saying that, in essence, there is nothing wrong with DLC as a practice, because originally well, I'm gonna state the obvious here, but DLC stands for downloadable content, i.e., content that is optional.
You think?
Look, I'm trying to convey a quick history lesson here, so don't get fresh with me, okay?
Okay, Professor Max.
Anyways, the point is that originally DLC was just a nice little optional bonus that publishers used to release in order to artificially increase the lifespan of a game.
Right.
Let's go, for example, with the Call of Duty franchise. Not because I'm a huge fan of it, but because
or you that were huge haters. So.
Yes, well, that too. But reason number one is because it's hugely popular, and reason number two, because it's hugely popular, Call of Duty, it almost kind of sets the trends for the rest of the game franchises out there, because everyone else these days seems to desperately try to replicate what Activision is doing with their cash cow franchise.
Those poor bastards.
Yes. Anyway, so the Call of Duty franchise, say you're a fan of the game, say you buy the latest Call of Duty game, you finish the single-player campaign, you play the multiplayer for a couple of weeks, you're enjoying yourself, and you increase your stats and whatnot. But, with every single game, there comes that time when you start to wonder, or rather your interest for the game starts to wane, and it's like, I've been enjoying it, but maybe it's time to move on to something else. But, pum pum pum, big surprise, all of a sudden Activision decides to release a new DLC pack that includes, say,
New maps.
6 new multiplayer maps and like 3 new guns, maybe 2 new skins and whatever, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, now I have a reason to keep playing this game. And as far as that type of DLC goes, I have nothing against that because...
Absolutely not, because I'm a Borderlands player. You can judge me on that.
Oh, you poor soul.
I like the second one better than the first, but again, it's a way to extend the life of a product. You know, they add more guns, they add more stuff. It is interesting and it is fun. It does keep the lifespan of that game fairly high. So you can argue that you actually get your money's worth with content that's created after the release of the game.
Yes. And let's not forget, it's optional, so it's just, you know, bonus content for the fans out there. But unfortunately these days, DLC, even though it began as a fairly innocuous and noble practice, like now it's gotten corrupted to the point where DLC, they're not even creating fresh content from scratch in order to justify a repurchase of the game or an additional $5 price tag on DLC. Instead, like in the case of certain games that we'll mention in a few minutes here, they just take a complete product and they slice it into several pieces like a freaking pie, and they sell you 7 pieces of the pie, and then the 8th part, which may already be on the disc, like in the case of Street Fighter X Tekken, they charge you extra to unlock something that's already on the freaking disc.
Oh yeah, and they're not the only people. I think it was Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm for the PlayStation 3 shipped with stuff on the disc that was disabled. Not that I bought the game, not that I'm a Naruto whatever fan. It's just this is my pretentious Wikipedia research.
Well, I was about to say, if you paid $60 for a freaking Naruto game, you know what? You deserve to be ripped off.
Yes. But seriously though, they actually shipped the game with the content on the disc, and you had to pay to unlock it. And this is just absolutely fucking insane.
It's egregious.
Yeah, again, the analogy that we've used multiple times is you buy a record of some sort or an anthology of records, and you think you're getting everything, and all of a sudden there's like this little card in the mail that says, you know, you have to spend an extra $20 to get the last disc. It's like, what? So it blows my fucking mind every single time I hear this shit. And the worst thing is it's commonplace now.
Yes.
I mean, granted, people jumped on Capcom's ass when they did Street Fighter X Tekken, but it didn't stop. I mean, not saying they made that Tekken X Street Fighter game, which I think the other developer was going to take the helm and do another zing at the Street Fighter crossover series. But you see this going on to this very day, this dubious practice of we are going to create a game, and in the case of Mortal Kombat X, we're planning on doing all this stuff, and we're going to deliberately hold some stuff back.
Yes. In order to justify, like I said, DLC as bonus material, nothing against that. But the problem is that these days, DLC has sort of become almost like a bargaining chip to justify pre-orders, which I personally take umbrage with. Because if we were to make a comparison with, say, the movie industry, there's several noticeable differences here, so this isn't going to be a perfect analogy, but still. In the case of a movie, like a film is released in theaters, right? And there are no pre-orders. You can pre-order your tickets, but usually the reviews of said movie are already in, so you can basically kind of gauge whether or not it's a good movie and whether or not you want to go watch it. Anyways, you buy the ticket, you go to the movie theater, you watch the film, and you either like it or you hate it, or maybe you're somewhere in between, whatever. And then, a couple of months from then, the publishers or the distributors decide to release the film on DVD or Blu-ray, and if you were a fan of said film, then you can repurchase it again, so that you can, you know, keep revisiting that film again and again and again. But here's the thing: even when the distributors re-release said film on home media, they still make sure to throw in a couple of bonuses, regardless of whether or not you're a fan or not. Like, you know, basically anything you would find in the extras menu of a DVD or a Blu-ray, like, you know, the audio commentary, behind-the-scenes stuff,
unskippable trailers in the beginning.
Well, yes, but the point is that in order to access all of this stuff, you already have to be a fan of this product. The problem is with in the case of video games, there is no video games are not released in theaters, so to speak. So people only buy the game once. So in order to, at least in my opinion, at least in this podcaster's humble opinion, what the publishers are doing is that they're trying to maximize their revenue by ensuring that you pay as much as possible for a product that is not even complete, with all these, pre-orders and season passes. And honestly, between the two of us, you're a bigger gamer than I am, so to me, like, the whole concept of like season passes, it's just it makes my head spin.
Yeah, and to me, it's, as an old school gamer, it's actually kind of offensive. I mean, like, if you played an old FPS game and you bought it, and then, like, Half-Life 2 is a great example, where they released Half-Life 2, there it is, have fun. And then later they say, okay, we're going to create episode 1 and episode 2 that expand the original story.
Right.
That's fine. I have no fucking problem with that, because it to me, it's an afterthought. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, listen, we can increase the lifetime of this game, and we can give people a reason to come back and revisit it. And we're going to charge them just because it'll be to compensate for our own time. We're creating this brand new content after the fact, and we need to get compensated, but still, it gives players a chance to revisit the world.
Yes.
That I am totally for. But what we're seeing again in this day and age is if Valve were to say, okay, we're going to make Half-Life 3, and you can also pre-order episodes 1 and 2 and 3 for Half-Life 3.
Yes.
And none of them are released yet, but we're planning on doing all this stuff, and you can pre-order it for when it comes out. To me, that is kind of offensive, because it's like, okay, well, you're planning on making this stuff anyway, so why do we need to make a DLC? Why don't you just include it in the full game? Mm-hmm. Kind of like what they used to do before consoles were connected to the net. You see, like, Rare was making, GoldenEye 64, and this is if the Nintendo 64 could connect to the internet. A hypothetical, basically. But if Rare were to say, okay, here's our game, but it's not done yet though, but if you get the pre-order DLC, i.e. the season passes,
yes,
then we'll include this damn level we're gonna make anyway. It's like, it gives me a headache. And maybe I'm being a grandpa here, but I think that it's just gotten to the point where it's just sick.
It has, and you know what, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but I do believe that the gamers themselves are at least partially to blame for this.
Well, they have to be.
Because they're kind of like being enablers in this case.
Mm-hmm.
Because believe you me, if DLC was not profitable, or pre-orders, if neither of those practices was profitable, the publishers would have dropped it off the face of the earth immediately, because
right.
Hey, this isn't bringing us any money, so and the people are complaining about this, so we might as well just drop it. Mm-hmm. But people keep buying this stuff, and you know what, it's your money, it's your disposable income, you can do whatever the fuck you want with it as far as I'm concerned, but still,
yep.
Just the fact that people buy this kind of stuff, that itself is already bad, but they also like come up with all of these almost like excuses to justify. It's almost like self-delusion. Like, one of the most popular excuses people come up with as far as pre-orders goes is they try to convince, well, themselves, it seems, that they're doing it only because they're trying to help the developers and give them as much money as possible in order for them to spit and polish the game as much as possible. And a YouTuber out there that's, he's fairly popular, but he's called Total Biscuit, and he's made several videos on the subject of pre-orders and DLC and whatnot. And he's actually brought up a good counter-argument to this point by saying that, well, here's the thing. If you truly want to support the developer, wouldn't you wait until the game is released, even on day one, and then, say, buy the game for full price, which is $60, usually, more or less, and then also additionally buy those 2 DLC campaigns that come with the pre-order pack, and say they cost like $5 each, so in total you're giving the developer $70 for the same bargain that you would have paid $60 with a pre-order. It does seem to me that it's almost like a case of avarice, mm-hmm. because you're not really getting anything special with the pre-order. Like, it's not like you're gonna get a copy of the game shipped to you a week before anyone else. So it's almost like this like I said, it's like avarice. I gotta have this game now, even though you don't really technically have it on your hands, and you won't have it for another 6 or 7 months or however long it's gonna be until the release date. But it's like the almost like a mentality from the 90s, like back in the old NES/SNES games, where you want to be the most popular kid on the block just because you're the one who has the brand new copy of.
You want to be that radical kid from the fucking Wizard with the fucking Power Glove. I own all 80 Nintendo games. Because that kid was so fucking cool compared to real life. And trust me, as a kid from the 90s, video games were not cool. And no, believe me, when it comes to the whole entire avarice angle, I can agree with this because I am guilty of this. The last game that I bought DLC and season passes or whatever else for was Mortal Kombat 9. And here's what they did to kind of ensnare me. So Mortal Kombat 9 or 2011 or whatever you want to call it was coming out. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to get this game because I want to play it first. Or maybe not first, but I want to play it right when it comes out because this looks fucking great.
Okay.
Fair enough. If you want to buy a game day one and you want to play online with people, you want to play with your friends, that's awesome. Do it. So then there's this pre-order option. And it says, like, if you pre-order from GameStop, you get a Scorpion costume plus an extra fatality for Scorpion, whereas the mask pull off, skull, shoot fire, etc. The Toasty fatality. Or you can pre-order from, like, I think it was Amazon, and you get the Reptile additional costume plus the tongue fatality, where you eat the guy's head with the chameleon tongue, which has always been my favorite. So, hence, because they made it sound like this is an exclusive thing, I pre-ordered at Amazon to get the Reptile costume. At least that's my recollection of it. I could be wrong, but I got the Reptile costume regardless.
Right.
Anyway, so I got it. I was in fucking ninth Cloud 9 or whatever you want to call it. And then after the game was released, they're like, oh, by the way, we're going to create 4 new characters for the game. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Rain, Blind Kenshi, Scarlet, and Freddy Krueger. So I bought each one of those separate. And then all of a sudden, they're releasing as DLC those pre-order characters that I didn't get a chance to order. I'm like, oh, okay, well, now I get to play as Classic Scorpion and Classic Sub-Zero, and I get some costume changes for Noob Saibot and Ermac and Jade, Katana and Melina, etc., etc., etc. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll buy into this because I want the complete version. And then a year later, they create the complete fucking version with the K in complete that includes all this shit for a fucking discounted price. And I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck these guys. I was livid because I'm like, okay, fair enough. They're doing the pre-order thing to get you to order it, which I do have some contention with, though. But in the case of Mortal Kombat, I was being a fanboy, and I'm like, yeah, I want to get it. So if we diss like Call of Duty players or something like that, I understand where you're coming from. Anyways, so they do the pre-order thing, you get a bonus, fine and dandy. In fact, Max can probably attest that when Gotham Arkham Knight comes out, there's a good chance that we might be pre-ordering that as well because of the bonuses that come with it. And then, of course, they say, okay, after the fact, we're going to release these characters and you can buy them for $5 a pop, which is expensive in my book, though, but I did it anyway because I wanted the characters. So there is definitely an angle of avarice, of greed in this. And
and stupidity as well.
Yeah, the human stupidity as far as, like, collecting shit, just like the Pokemon theory where you got to collect them all. So, yeah, it's phenomenal the way that this actually works and the way that it's marketed to you. Like, if you don't pre-order Mortal Kombat X now, you will never get to play as Goro.
I really doubt
it. At this point, I sincerely doubt that. I doubt that with every fucking inch of my being. Whereas some pre-order DLC is true, you never get to play it again. Like in the case of Arkham Origins, you can't download the Deathstroke. What do you call them? The practice arena challenge modes. Yes.
Yeah, but again, in the case, I believe the reason why you can't do that in the case of Batman Arkham Origins is because, unlike the previous 2 Batman Arkham games, this one didn't become the game of the year. So the publisher has no justification to re-release the game again. So, you know, that's pretty much the reason here.
Yeah, people are waiting for that. That complete edition of Arkham Origins, which has been teased overseas, I guess, or it's just faked, and I haven't heard anything of it ever coming to fruition. So, but on the topic of the Arkham games, Max, would you like to explain your thoughts on the genuinely tantalizing pre-order items for Arkham Knight?
Okay, so in the case of Batman Arkham Knight, what's enticing about the pre-order stuff is that, once again, depending on which version you buy, if you buy it from GameStop or if you buy it from Amazon or whatever, you get some neat little juicy bonuses, like, for example, an exclusive story pack featuring Harley Quinn. So we're not talking about just a couple of challenge maps where you get to play as her, kind of like you were able to play as, say,
the Joker in Arkham Asylum for the PlayStation 3.
Yes, or Robin and Nightwing in the case of Batman Arkham City. You weren't able to play as them in the actual game, but you were able to play as them in those challenge maps and whatnot. And in addition to that, in certain other versions, you're also getting an exclusive story pack for the Red Hood, aka Jason Todd, and also some neat stuff like it's not a one-to-one replica, but basically an action figure type of a replica of the Batmobile, which you'll see in the game, which isn't just some like cheap plastic kind of stuff. It actually transforms into battle mode, like.
It's cheap plastic. It's a cheap plastic transformer, is what it is.
Well, okay, fair enough.
Autobots. Sorry.
Well, okay, fair enough. And there's also stuff like the statue and whatnot. So, but to me personally, it's the story packs that are the most enticing, mainly because I would imagine that it's going to be something like the Catwoman DLC in Batman Arkham City, which was integral to the main storyline of the game, especially if we consider the fact that one of the popular theories out there regarding the identity of the Arkham Knight is the fact that he could be Jason Todd. So who knows? The Red Hood story pack could be a bit of a prequel, perhaps, to the game.
I'd still go with the other theory that the Arkham Knight's actually Hush, but anyways.
Well, regardless of what it is, we're not just talking about extra costumes and challenge maps and whatnot, which was the case with the previous game, Arkham Origins. Mm-hmm. In this case, you do legitimately get bonuses that do sound enticing, but one thing I'm kind of wondering about here is whether or not these so-called exclusive DLC packs will remain such, i.e. exclusive, or if in a couple of months, as was the case with Mortal Kombat 9, all of this stuff will become...
And Borderlands 1 and 2, and lots of Call of Duty games, any other Game of the Year edition that comes out and releases everything all in one nice, neat little package.
Yes, if eventually all of that stuff will not be released separately anyway, and it really doesn't matter where you pre-purchase the game. So again, there is that avarice angle to it, where it's like, well, I really, really want to play as Red Hood, but do I want to pre-purchase the game, or do I want to wait a couple of months until like maybe a Steam sale and get this game like 20% off and get a whole bunch of DLC?
Yeah, it might be a year or so from then, but
doesn't matter. The point is that I'm wondering if I'm really gonna get the bang for my buck in this case, if I jumped the gun and pre-ordered the game, or if the more sensible thing would be to just wait and get that stuff anyway in a couple of months or even a year. Doesn't really matter.
Well, here's the thing we have to consider too, is the fact that you get to flip a coin on this. You get to flip a coin that you'll get some great DLC that you won't be able to see again, or at least for a year or so, for a game that could be good, or the game could be a dud. And you could totally be fucking yourself, because what the company did is it got you to pay as much as possible for that game before reviewers got a chance to see it, before Let's Players could take a look at it and you could make your own informed decisions. You get to sample this game before it's released on the hopes and prayers, the faith that this thing could be great. I mean, who knows? It could be great. I mean, just look at Duke Nukem Forever. What could go wrong?
Yes.
This is something people need to worry about when they do pre-orders. Are you going to give this company your money before anyone's ever really seen it, before you know whether it's going to be a good game or not? And with the game industry being so fucking bloated as far as development, yes, they can't afford to gamble on sales, which is why they're trying to entice people to buy the shit beforehand. Mm-hmm. Because let's say there was no pre-order incentive for Arkham Origins, and whether or not you like the game or not, if it was a true stinker, and people didn't pre-order and they saw it and they're like, I'll just skip out on this Batman adventure, then the company would have gotten its ass handed to them.
True.
They would have lost probably way more money than they put into developing the game. So with the AAA budgets, they can't afford to not do this. And again, with the DLC, they're trying to squeeze their customers for as much money as possible, almost right from the get-go. That's why you have pre-orders. That's why you have season passes, which is pre-order DLC. And this is why you also have DLC coming up for games that aren't even fucking released.
Yes, I mean, as far as publishers go, I do understand why they're doing it. They're almost like doing a vertical, not even a vertical slice, but what they're trying to do is there's no guarantee that the game will sell. There's no, regardless of how much money they pour into it, there's no guarantee that the game will be a blockbuster.
And that also includes marketing, because, they gotta put those ads on Kotaku, and they have to put the ads in the magazines and on commercials and whatever else, so...
Yeah, so what they're trying to do is they
have to pay off the reviewers, and they have to do all this other shit, so...
Yes, they gotta send hookers to their hotels, and all those questionable practices that the gamers have had enough with. But what I'm trying to say here is that I can understand why the publishers are doing it, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to gauge approximately how much money they'll be able to make back. And of course, it's obviously it's not true entirely accurate, but at least they get some form of guarantees, as opposed to if they didn't do any kind of pre-orders and they had absolutely no idea whether or not the game is going to sell. But the problem is that we've seen examples of
abuse, pure abuse. Yes. Because remember Call of Duty Ghosts, where they had no gameplay footage, and they still at the bottom they say pre-order now. And for once, game journalists actually took the piss out of that and said, listen, you show us a bunch of people wearing masks, and you say pre-order the new game at the bottom when there's no gameplay footage or anything. I mean, it doesn't even look like there's any evidence that they actually started making the fucking game yet, and still they want us to pre-order.
For all we know, that trailer couldn't have, it could have come from someone else, not even Activision. It could have been a hoax of some sorts.
I mean, so something some people need to consider is back in my day, when I used to pre-order games, I don't know if I sound like Jimmy Stewart, or if I sound like Bane, but but back in my day when you had to pre-order games, is because you had to go down to a fucking physical shop, like GameStop or something like that, and pick it up. And to an extent, people still do. Now, you pre-order a game because when the game comes out, they take your copy and they put it in the back where no one else can get it. Supposedly, there's been articles and shit about GameStop employees or whatever else company basically screwing people out of their pre-orders and keeping them for themselves. But what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to take that game out of the box, as far as like big box to get all the games in, just stick it in the back where you can come in with your receipt and pick it up, and nobody else gets a chance to get your game. See, now that makes sense to a lot of ways, because again, you're taking a gamble whether the game's good or not, especially back in the NES, SNES days where it was a total crapshoot with crap games. But still, you're securing a product. Whereas in this digital age, where you can buy stuff off the PlayStation Network, Xbox Marketplace, Steam, for instance, there's no excuse to get that kind of pre-order sense, because you're not going to get the game early, and you're still going to get the game day one, whether or not you pre-order or not. It's just that now they're including those incentives, additional content, to rope you into pre-ordering, because hey, listen, if you pre-order now, you can save $10 on the DLC, which, like you said, Total Biscuit uses to completely demolish the idea that you're somehow supporting the developer by robbing the developer of their precious $10 worth of DLC.
Right, it's what it is. I'm not gonna call it selfishness, but like I said, it's pure avarice. And if people at least owned up to that, that'd be fine. But
which I do. I freely do. Borderlands, Mortal Kombat. I've done my fair share of DLC and pre-order stuff. But you know what? Ever since I got screwed on Mortal Kombat, I'm just gonna wait for the Game of the Year edition or a Steam sale and just go from there.
Well, see, the fact that you admitted to it makes you the exception from the rule, you effing freak.
I have repented. I am absolved. I can go to gamer heaven.
Yes,
or Valhalla, or whatever your pagan religion is.
Oh, if only more. Yes, well, if only more people followed your examples, but your example. But see, the problem I'm seeing with the DLC is that I almost wonder if the advent of Kickstarter hasn't had like a ripple effect, that has made publishers even more greedy after they saw how much money all of these indie guys are making before the game is even released. Because as we've discussed previously in our Kickstarter podcast from years and years ago, don't forget about that incident with Obsidian Games, where they went from publisher to publisher, and almost everyone told them that, look, this looks like an interesting concept, and I guess we could get behind it, but tell you what, how about you guys go on Kickstarter and raise enough money to make the games yourselves, and then we'll publish it.
And then you give us the Kickstarter money and we'll publish it.
It's
fucking hell.
Yeah, it's like going to a local mafia boss just to get so-called protection to run your business, and at the end you have to pay the guy interest in order to stay in business.
Wasn't there you're a Goodfellas fan, aren't you? Isn't there a part where like they end up like usurping like a some business or something, and then they end up like running the business into the ground with like illegal cigarettes and shit? They charge the guy, they maxed out his credit and ran him out of business.
Yeah. One bar owner goes to Paulie for protection, and at the end he just abuses him and usurps him out of business. And regardless of whether or not it was fair, Paulie's practice was always "fuck you, pay me." So yeah, that pretty much summarizes the the situation here.
Oh my god, that is so true. Fuck you, pay me. That summarizes DLC, season passes, and pre-orders all in one fucking nutshell. Fuck you, pay me.
That's true. But to go back to the subject of bloated budgets again, the fact that game developers or game publishers, I don't know who's really to blame here because I don't have any inside scoop as they call it, but the fact that they have their eyes set on money that they shouldn't even think of yet before they've actually made the product, that almost makes things worse for everyone else. Because look at Tim Schafer and Double Fine with their Broken Age game. Tim Schafer and Double Fine started out as a indie game, and a couple of years ago they ran, possibly even to this day, the most successful Kickstarter campaign, where they had amassed roughly $3 million to make their Broken Age game. But the problem is,
and that was way more than they were asking for.
But because they got all that money, according to Tim Schafer, he tried to add as much spit and polish to the game, so he kept adding like voice acting and cutscenes, and
they spent $1.5 million to get Elijah Wood to voice a character, and another $20 to get Jack Black.
Yes, but the point is, as a result of all of these shenanigans, they've ran out of fucking budget. Despite the fact that $3 million was way more than they were initially asking for, all of a sudden it's like, you know what, we're out of money. What you gonna do?
I know. Granted, I played the first Broken Age, and I enjoyed it. I mean, it was pretty interesting, especially the twist ending. And then I've been waiting for episode 2 ever fucking since, and it's like, okay, well, are they ever going to finish it? And then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, we finally got more money to finish it, and apparently they were using the profits from the first episode to fund the second. I'm like, where'd the $3 million go?
Well, that's the problem. Initially, the game wasn't even meant to be released in 2 parts. Initially, it was meant to be a full game, but because Tim Schafer is a genius, and I'm using finger quotes here when it comes to financing his own games, they ran out of money halfway through, and that's why they decided to split that game into 2 parts, so that the sales of the first part would finance the development of the second part. And I'm just sitting here with my jaw agape, because it's like, this is supposed to be an indie game. $3 million is not enough to release it. And meanwhile, you have a guy like Vince 12, who single-handedly made that game I told you about called Resonance on basically
which I still need to check out.
Well, and I would also recommend it to anyone else who is a fan of great storytelling and point-and-click games. But the point is that the guy made that game single-handedly on a shoestring budget, and I think it's available like on Steam now for like $10 or so. And that game, and that game is phenomenal as far as like indie games go. And again, the guy made it himself for, I would wager, a lot less than $3 million.
And meanwhile, you got Tim Schafer. Tim, $3 million is not enough to make an indie game, Schafer.
It's like those videos he always releases of himself where he's eating money.
Well, the problem is, I think initially it was meant to be ironic, but when that has turned out to be the
That was just the truth.
Yes.
Oh, but yeah, I mean, you look at like, and again, I'm not trying to ride indie games dicks though, but there's been some great Kickstarter movements, like, you know, Crypt of the Necrodancer. Fucking great game. After watching Rich Evans and Jack play it for a while, I had to go jump on it and try it, and it is fucking fun. And really wish this one I would have helped crowdfund. And the latest one I wish I kind of helped crowdfund is Strafe.
Yes.
It's an old school 1996 looking Quake type of game, you know, 3D polygons, ultra violent. Looks fun as fuck. I watched a previously recorded play it on their Twitch stream, which one of the developers was actually talking to them on the Twitch stream, explaining what they were planning on doing, you know, why they need the money, that kind of thing. And the trailer, if you guys have not seen the trailer for a game called Strafe,
Yes.
it is the fucking funniest trailer I've ever seen in my well, in recent years, definitely, because it's almost like an Adult Swim, you know,
Parody.
Too Many Cooks.
Yes.
It starts going like a total 1996 trailer, just over the top, you know, come on, dude, you know, that kind of thing. And it just goes into Twilight Zone territory halfway through. It's amazing.
Yes, we'll link the trailer in the description, but it is possibly.
Yeah.
You know what? If you're gonna make a Kickstarter trailer, this is how you do it.
This is how you get people's attention.
Yes.
But seriously, you know, these guys are making games, and granted, they're not like, you know, AAA major huge games, though, but they're still fun. They're still interesting. They're doing on shoestring budgets with a lot of the Kickstarter type help, which is fine. I'm sound like I'm being hypocritical here, where you should pre-purchase the indie stuff and not the AAA stuff.
Well, the problem is that in the case of the indies, I can understand why they need that kind of game. Is because
True, because you have like 3 people in their basement working on their own spare time to release a game that will maybe never ever make $1 million back, or even make its budget back.
Whereas in the case of, say, the previously mentioned Call of Duty Ghosts, pre-order now to help with the game's development, it's like, fuck you, didn't the previous game make like $5 million in revenue?
Yeah, more than that.
Well, yeah, obviously.
It probably sold 5 million copies.
Yeah, I'm probably getting my numbers mixed up here, but yes, you're right. And all of a sudden, you poor gents need an extra change? Fuck you, you've got the money, you're Activision.
It's like Warner Brothers or some major movie studio saying, "We need your help, people, to finance our movies," and it's like, "Fuck you! You guys are already making, like, you know, multi-million-dollar stuff. If you need extra money, cut back."
Yes, it's like Michael Bay going to freaking Indiegogo and asking for additional money to make Transformers 5.
I need money for Transformers 6, and people will give him the fucking money. That's the worst part.
In an industry that prioritizes fast food junk like Transformers or Call of Duty, and hey, if you're a fan of that stuff, you know what? Go fuck yourself. I'm not gonna go this whole thing. It's like, you know, if it's your thing and whatnot, no, you're responsible for the eventual demise of both the movie and the game industry. I'm joking, but not really.
You're not part of the solution. You're part of the problem. Jesus, Max. You're.
Well, I'm joking, but not really. You gotta have some standards, you know.
Mr. Entertainment Eugenics here. Jesus Christ.
Well, yeah, you know, it's probably a good thing that I'm sitting in my parents' basement with a microphone in front of me, as opposed to being on a tribune somewhere, or a pedestal of some sorts, screaming at the top of my lungs. But anyways, all jokes aside, like with the indie stuff, there is no guarantee that this game is going to sell or if it's going to be popular and whatnot, so I can understand why people might want, why the indie game developers might want or require additional financial help from the fans. And as once again Total Biscuit has pointed out in one of his videos dedicated to, I think it was called Kickstarter versus Pre-Orders, where he says that there is undeniable proof that Kickstarter has done some good, because we have seen certain games, certain types of games, or even certain genres make a comeback that would have otherwise never, they would have never sold or never would have gotten greenlit by publishers these days.
Like those, like those strategy games, like, you know, I'm trying to think of what it was called.
FTL.
No, well, yeah, FTL is a good example. Invisible Ink. These are genres that have been dead and buried for 10, 15 years, something like that. I mean, off. Last time I saw one of these types of games was like the old XCOM games from like, you know, the 1990s. And all of a sudden they're being brought back because, you know, a AAA developer is not going to invest in a chance at doing something different. Right. They're going to go with the same shit that they've been selling, something comfortable. That's the worst thing too. Something comfortable for their consumers, because people don't like new things. Mm-hmm. People want to buy the same shit over and over and over again because they know what it is, they know what they're getting. Mortal Kombat, in my case, I know what it is, I know what I'm getting, or at least I did before I started playing the PlayStation 2 versions of their games, because those things sucked. Mortal Kombat Armageddon, no fatalities, create your own, all characters are the same. Fuck that.
Yuck.
Anyways, yeah, they want to peddle the same shit over and over and over again, where, again, indie gamers seem to be the ones who are taking the chances. They're like, listen, this is a passion project, and this is exactly what the Strafe guy said on previously recorded on the Twitch stream. Mm-hmm. That, you know, this is a passion project. They're going to make this game anyway, and it's just that they put it on the indie thing, the Kickstarter, because they want to get hype for it. They want to get people to notice that it's there. They want to get paid for all the work that they've done because they've invested tons of time and energy and resources out of their own pocket. And additionally, there's a lot of things they want to do, but it's something that they would they'd only put into the game if they could actually afford to do it. If they could afford to take another year to develop a game, they would do all this cool new stuff to go with it. So in that case, it's actually really interesting, and it's something that I would say, again, this kind of goes to the entire Kickstarter topic, is something I'd say is kind of worth it. Whereas, you know, all the pre-order stuff for, you know, AAA titles, and especially when they start touting that, oh, we're creating this game, and guess what? Right after we release this game, we already have plans for DLC in the works. So get your DLC now, and get your game now, and wait a couple months for both.
How about no? Because I'm not seeing the same kind. I'm not seeing a similar type of practice being applied in any kind of other industry, be it the movie industry or anything else. You know, when you go to a car dealership and you buy a car, you don't get.
You can't look under the hood.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. They're selling you a product that's missing a couple of potentially crucial details. Like, you know, you buy a car and you take it out of the car dealership for a test drive and whatever and whatnot, and then it turns out that the fucking wheels fall off because they didn't insert a couple of necessary screws, and it's like, well, guess what? For an additional $50,
he will give you the lug nuts.
Pretty much.
It's egregious and it's moronic, and I think that, like I said, the gamers are kind of partially to blame here, because if only you guys could let go of this 90s mentality of, I want to be the most popular kid on the block, I want to be the first one to have this game, because
trust me, that's not a 90s mentality. You were never the most popular kid because you had the latest video game back in the 90s. Trust me, man.
Well, you know what, in that case, perhaps Kotaku was right. Perhaps gamers do need to die. No, I'm joking, of course.
One of the biggest problems is the fact that gaming is becoming the dominant art form. Mm-hmm. It's beating out Hollywood, as far as like how much money it's making and that kind of thing. So they're playing it safe. They've taken the creativity out of a lot of it, and now they're looking strictly at the figures.
Yes.
And it's like, well, you know, we could either do something interesting, like a game where you dance to a beat and you kill monsters in like a roguelike dungeon, Crypt of the Necrodancer, or we could do this one thing that we know will make money, which is a first-person shooter in a war zone, and it has a great multiplayer community and lots of quick-time events where the buttons on the screen, so that everybody, even no matter who they are, no matter what their level of game knowledge is, knows how to grieve at a funeral.
Yes, it's that old hand-holding type of gameplay that is predominant in most video games these days.
Yeah, it's sick. And again, I understand why companies are doing it though, but I'm just so sick of playing this game where it's like, yeah, pre-order DLC too, and it's like that's not how it used to be. That's not how it used to work. You'd buy a game, and to extend the life of the game, the developer would say, come back later and say, okay, well, we're just gonna release this too if you give us $5 to get a map pack. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, cool, awesome. And of course, all this stuff came about when I think it actually kind of started with the Dreamcast, and especially Xbox, because once the console started connecting to the net, is obviously when you can start downloading content. Duh. But Microsoft, I think, was one of the biggest ones to push this, as far as like, I imagine their marketplace, they get a cut on everything they sell, so that explains a lot.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that they were the ones to spearhead this.
And Sony and Steam are also guilty of that, though. But again, money's driving all of this. And it used to be, okay, you know, you bought Halo, awesome. Now get a Halo map pack or something hypothetical like that. Where now it's, before you buy the game, you can buy the DLC.
Right.
And it's like, fuck me. I mean, we just put the fucking DLC in the game. If you're already working on it,
yes.
if you already have plans for it, just put it in the fucking game.
Especially when there's a chance that said DLC can even enhance the game, like in the case of Star Wars: The Force Unleashed, where you've told me about. Do explain what the 2 DLC packs are.
Do you want the Force Unleashed 2 with punt-kicking Ewoks?
Yes.
That's the one you want.
Yeah.
Max and I discussed this one earlier. The idea was that they re-released the Force Unleashed 1 Dark Side Edition, where you got 2 exclusive missions. One where you go to the Jedi homeworld and you learn some stuff, and the other one is an alternate reality where you go to Hoth and you end up, you know, turning Luke Skywalker over to the dark side. And then they turn around after saying this is going to be an exclusive, this brand new version of the game edition, and made it DLC. Because I guess people weren't buying that whole, I don't want to buy this fucking game all over again mentality. Just put it on DLC, let me buy that, and let me keep on going. So that was pretty disgusting. But then the Force Unleashed 2 kind of did the same thing, except you go to Endor, and you get to kill Ewoks, and it's the greatest thing ever. I mean, you're going along. I mean, you literally like kick them like footballs. It's like being Darth Vader crossed with like Chris Pratt from Guardians of the Galaxy, and you're punting Ewoks like they're fucking rats. I mean, I just wish they had the song playing in the background. Come and get your love.
See, if they wanted that game to sell like hotcakes, they should have made that the very first level of the game.
Yes. For all of you who hated Imp or Jedi just because of the fucking Ewoks, guess what? You get to kick the little fucking Care Bears across the goddamn forest.
Yes, it would have been immediately the game of the year right there.
Yes, I mean, that's the only reason why I played that particular game, is because of that mission. The rest of the game sucked. So, getting back on topic, just to wrap all this up, if you guys like doing the pre-order stuff, if you guys like doing all that stuff, fine, I understand it. I do. But just the way that it's becoming too mainstay, the way that we're being almost like Skinner boxed, I don't know, I won't even use that analogy, the way we're being tempted and being greedy about getting all this exclusive stuff that we know will probably be released later, if we pay an exorbitant amount now, is kind of sending the wrong message. And again, when Mortal Kombat X isn't even out yet, hasn't even shown off the rest of the cast, except for like the, I think, 10 returning characters and 4 of the new characters, and there's 6 new characters yet to be revealed, and they're already announcing DLC for this game that's not even done yet, and pre-orders for a game that's not even completely marketed yet.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't find out what the other characters are like yet. It blows my mind. I mean, just the amount of greed that they have and they expect that we have is disgusting. I mean, again, you don't, half the roster hasn't even been announced yet, and it's like.
Yes, and of course, like I said, at least part of the blame lies in the gamers. So, especially these days, with all the game forums and like Steam threads and whatnot, where you can just, you know, do some quick research and realize that, oh, maybe I shouldn't pre-order this because I'm gonna get the same kind of shit in this collector's edition or whatever that's gonna be released in a month's worth of time. It's like, just at the end of the day, yes, it is your money. It is, if you have some disposable income, you can do whatever the hell you want with it, sure. But it seems like too many people are jumping the gun, and they're basically taking the bait, and as a result of this, all of this DLC and season passes and pre-orders, etc., it's become almost like commonplace. It's become like the default practice.
And that's my contention about it, yes.
And fewer and fewer DLC campaigns are actually that, like, you know, the like stuff like Batman Arkham Knight with the exclusive story stuff, where like the Red Hood and Harley Quinn, those are basically the exceptions to the rule. Whereas the norm is to just take a completed product, slice it into several pieces, sell you the majority of the pieces, and then hold the rest of them hostage until you give the game publishers or the game developers extra money, which is... it's extortion is what it is.
I'm waiting for the day I open up like a fucking case and there's a ransom note inside. Newspaper bits cut up, and it says, if you want to see the last half of the game, you gotta send your money to XXX. The bathroom in the park behind stall number 2.
Yes, if you want to see Raiden alive again in your Mortal Kombat game.
If you want to play as something, send money too. But again, the idea of pre-ordering used to be practical. As in, you know, you get your game, guarantee that you get it. The idea of DLC used to be practical, as in it was extending the life of the game after the game was already released. Half-Life is a great example. Half-Life 2, sorry, is a great example. But now it's just gotten so corporatized that it is just sick. I mean, we're like Mikey said, we're gonna hold back this little bit, send you a ransom note saying, "Oh, there's new DLC available. If you come over here, you can get to play as Harley Quinn or as Red Hood." Woohoo! So, I don't know. I'm just gonna wait for the Mortal Kombat X Game of the Year edition. I don't need to play it that fucking badly. And we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Oh, you know what? Considering that I'm playing Rocksmith 2014, there are good DLCs. And again, this is where they said they're not going to release a yearly Rocksmith, and instead they're releasing songs every year. So instead of having to buy a whole game, you get to download songs, and you can learn to play them on a real guitar. Now this is kind of cool, in my opinion. Just because it's extending the life of a product. This is 2014 game, released in 2013, obviously, and it's still going strong. They're still releasing content for it. That is awesome.
Yes. So, if only more game developers were to follow Rocksmith's example, because God knows we don't need those yearly NFL/NHL, etc., games, because, you know.
Hey, you think it'd just be like a roster change and maybe a texture pack?
Yeah, exactly. It's not like we're getting, like with, you know, fighting games and whatnot. At least you're getting new stuff, like a new art design and new moves, new characters, etc. But
yeah, just look at Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Super Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
Okay, terrible example, but then again, that's Capcom, so what do you expect?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing too, is people jump on Capcom's ass for doing this when so many other developers are guilty of this shit. So, buyer beware.
So, you know, in a world of deceit, open your eyes.
Yep, buyer beware. Oh hey, you made it to the end of our video. Awesome. You must like what you heard, so while you're here, why not check out some of our other content? If you want more of our thoughts on the game industry, then be sure to check out our superior Telltale Games After Hours. Or if you have an itch for video game news and music remixes, then check out Game Glitch Radio, hosted by Kenny and the FUBU. However, if you want the real meat of our channel, be sure to watch the latest 2 CCS video podcasts. In one, we dissect the YouTube horror game phenomenon Five Nights at Freddy's, and the other is part 3 of our sexism and video games trilogy, Research, Reason, and Rebellion. And if you want to stay up to date on new discussions, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And hey, get some juicy bonuses and even talk to us live by giving us a hand on Patreon. And be sure to check out CheshireCatStudios.com because the forums are back. That's right, you can join our growing community, show off your own content, and post enough questionable content to get our Google AdSense account suspended for the 3rd time. Fuck yeah!